So if anybody's worrying about how that went and thinks, "Ooh, I didn't do that very well," what I can guarantee is that if you go away from here and try that at home and try it again, you get better. So it's one of those self-reflection things. It's really a good idea to try and master it. We do it sort of internally at Cycling UK a little bit in a slightly different way, in a sort of 30 seconds pitch, which is even harder. Most media interviews will give you a free 30 seconds at the start to get across what you want before they start interrupting you. So we always try and get what is the 30 seconds we want to get into this. And quite often you'll get another bite of it at the end, where the final question, where they're not bothering to, and you can repeat the thing that you said at the start. And that goes back to something Sophie said about your one key message. We're all afraid, because we know so much and we're so passionate, not to make the same point twice. But actually, sometimes you need to tell people, and the really important thing that I've got to tell you again is, because that's the thing that you need them to grasp. So we shouldn't be afraid of that. But just as a general feedback, how did people find that? Bit uncomfortable?
Difficult to get it in 1 minute.
Right. Did anybody listen to somebody else and think, yeah, I really liked what you did, or the way you did it? There's a hand up over there. What particularly about, well, congratulations, but what particularly about it?
Well, she had a story. She had a beautiful story about a young girl. So it was inspiring.
But you had a really good action, which was that it's fun to join the bike class as it's volunteers.
Yeah.
Good action for them.
Yeah, I mean, fun is an interesting one.
Oh,
We don't talk about it enough. We're so passionate about what we do. People within cycling campaign quite often forget fun and the joy of riding a bike. And actually that's a human story, and that people enjoy that. I mean, there's then the point which has been raised that we need to move on to and what's needed. And there's a sort of that task of actually trying to get that in a minute of, but this isn't sustainable for 20 years. We can't have people on bike buses in every town and city driving to every school for year on end. So we need something else that makes it available so we don't need it. What's that? Well, we need better infrastructure. And so you told the story. But it's hard to get that into a minute. But it's an interesting exercise for yourself in terms of how you sell what you're doing. It's amazing how many opportunities crop up with people which are unexpected, whereby you get a chance to speak to somebody who wields some power unexpectedly. We do an interview test at Cycling UK, which is designed to avoid people doing PowerPoint presentations, and the task is usually something like, you've just got the job as campaigns officer at Cycling UK, I've bumped into you at the train station at Cardiff, I own the largest business in Cardiff, and I say, why should I be bothered about this? You've got 5 minutes to tell me whilst the trains were coming in. And we do that task of actually, can you actually summarise something and tell the story? Because that's what we need to try and get people on board with this. So, with that, I would encourage you, when you've gone away, just have a think about that as a test, a little exercise at home, how you actually explain something in that time frame, because you do get better at it as you go on. And with that, I will pass over to Sophie.
Well, you'll either be very sad or slightly relieved that we've come to the end almost. Pantomime, please, thank you. So, just as a recap, the 3 things that we thought were quite important for how we kind of move this bike bus movement kind of forwards is, first, kind of how do we bring in more people, grow this as a community of people who care about cycling. Then how do we work out who needs to hear about it, who needs to see it in action? And now how do we make sure that those right people hear what you say and you can say it convincingly? So hopefully you all now feel slightly more confident in trying to do all of those things. We have actually, I didn't think we would, but we have got time if anyone's got any questions for us or Mireia or Sam. Hello, there we go.
Sorry, it's not a question so much, but an offer to everybody in the room. So my name's Michael. I make
films, I've made a number of documentaries about cycling, and I've done a couple of films about bike buses. I'm involved in setting bike buses up now as well because I love it so much. One is about the Winchester bike bus, that's in a film called Chasing the Sun. But I've also done one now about the Stratford area, Stratford-upon-Avon, which is available as a 2-minute film and a 5-minute film on YouTube. I'd like to think it's pretty convincing. If you'd like to use it, I'd be absolutely honoured. I'm very happy to share the link with that with you. Also, the feature-length documentary is on Amazon Prime, so again, I can let you know how to find that and where you can share it with people as well. So, got more projects in the pipeline, other bike buses.
Awesome. Yep.
I have a question. Like from a couple of years of going and thinking about cycling as an activist form and also as a professional form, there's one thing that has crossed my mind multiple times, which is I don't see the car industry talking about how we need to improve the fluidity of traffic because our drivers are getting upset. Even though we're very aware that this is a common feeling. It seems to me that they have understood that although we need to advocate, especially with political power, for changes which are driven by negative aspects, that we need to start putting way more emphasis on the positive messages with cycling, because otherwise the subliminal message that we're always going to pass is when you bike, you die. If this is 100% of the discussion, and I think this is not something on purpose. It just feels like, at least where I come from, our cyclist groups, they really rally up when someone is killed, and they go in an intersection. The only time that you have the news and the media, and then a year goes by, and all of the good stuff that happened, nothing. And so, if I am a parent and I'm driving my kids to school, the idea that I associate with a bike is very negative. So I'm not sure. Like, you're very knowledgeable on that.
There's it links to something that's really important in our communications called framing, which I nearly mentioned because it's a personal passion of mine, but I thought we were running out of time. But because you mentioned it, I can bring it in. Some of you won't be, but some of you will be old enough in the room to remember Ford at the time of Watergate, the American president. And he was being accused of being a crook. And he went on national TV and he said in front of the entire American public, "I am not a crook." And all the American public heard was, "President Crook." That's all they heard. And it's renowned in comms and framing as the parrot trap, repeating that which you don't want to say. And cycling campaigners do it all the time. "We're not anti-car," they say. "Cycle lanes do not cause congestion." And all people hear is cycle lanes congestion, anti-car. And that negative framing of things comes out from many people's mouths in relation to things. Whereas, the story is cycling boosts the high street. Cycling's good for your health. Cycling, I could go on forever. But the framing is often put in a negative way. And that links to your comment about if you talk about death and destruction in that way, you can create the impression that it's not safe enough to cycle. And there's a thing around that about perceptions that are important. Sorry, you had a question back.
It is a comment, sorry, but I think it's a bit linked to both of the points. And I was thinking about the idea of influence, and I was just thinking about whether we could stretch that a bit to engagement, because I think yes, it's about growing and sustaining bike buses, but I thought Hamish's point was really well made that there's a lot of diversity within individual bike buses, and I think for Cycle Winchester it's about growing the bike bus community, and that's really about engagement probably as much or if more so than influencing. And I was thinking about those sort of stakeholders that you you had on that map. And one thing that we had a really wonderful, unexpected kind of partnership with our university, our art school, and that came about through a conversation about bike bus. So one of our bike bus leaders was looking for a fun way to help assign bike bus locations and increase visibility and doing it in a positive, fun way. So seeing if we could use art as a tool to engage people in, thinking about road space and things more positively. And that basically led to an art gallery exhibition about bikes. And it was such a wonderful collaboration. The university loved it because it was the most publicly attended gallery exhibition that they'd ever had. It drove loads of people there. We loved it because it got the word out about cycling being just a normal fun thing as part of our community. Bike buses got a bit of a boost as well. And then just as an example of what that can maybe lead to in terms of infrastructure, small example, but hey, let's celebrate the small wins. We got a bike rack put outside the School of Art. So there is now a bike rack outside the School of Art. It's really visible, it's really well used, and that wouldn't have been there if we hadn't done that collaboration, that exhibition. So I think it's just being open to those engagements on the train platform, having those conversations again and again, and just, seeing what partnerships involve. Our experience of bike buses, that they are a great way to foster unexpected conversations and partnerships.
Brilliant.
And in line with this and with what you say about having one unique message, I always get tired of saying the same sentence. I always say, no, going in the bike bus is like having a coffee with your colleagues before entering into your office. Then you arrive with more energy and more happy, and Friday looks much better. That's for kids. And one interview, second interview, and I always say, and I have to look for another sentence.
But it
this
works,
sentence
right?
works because everyone understands what is having a coffee before going into
I like that.
okay,
So
just
is it-
20 euros.
Hand up at the back, sorry.
Okay, you go.
And a coffee.
Cool. Thanks. Thank you. I just want to be really honest here. So one of the reasons I came to this workshop is I wanted to find out a little bit more about campaigning, and I wanted to learn from people in the room. And I just wanted to pick up on Emma's point there about things at work, successes, and there's again, this is the beauty of having a global bike bus summit. Is there's lots of people coming together, different experiences, different bike buses, and one of the things I'm really keen to see happening, especially moving forward, is this knowledge sharing, and where people have success with engaging, whether it be politicians, making change happen, we need to share the recipe for how that works. Whether you did something in a particular way and boom, it worked. You got something changed. You got a piece of infrastructure in, or something else happened that has had that real positive effect on helping those journeys to school that we want to see happen, and moving towards that idea that we don't need a bike bus. That's what we want to work towards. And I think in this room and for the rest of the people here, everyone's doing some really good stuff. So my sort of hope is that we can start to share that and collaborate and record it somewhere, so that we all have those tools to work with going forward. And that's sort of something I just wanted to share, and I hope we can do that going forward.
That leads me very nicely, Hamish, into saying we have something called the Cycle Advocacy Network that we set up, which is designed to try and do that, not just bike bus specific, but for people who are trying to speak up for cycling in their area. Because we were thinking, someone's trying and struggling to do something in Birmingham that somebody else has done quite well in Lancaster, and somebody else has also done pretty well in Aberdeen, but they don't know each other. So we need to somehow get them talking to each other to help each other out. So we've got lots of resources on the website. There's a much more comprehensive how to engage with the media guide, which is worth a look at if you want some more details. But we've also got a forum for sort of campaigning where people can try and ask that question and get the hive mind on it. I mean, I had a good example the other day where someone was saying, oh, has anybody done a school travel survey before so I don't have to do one from scratch? And then someone instantly went, oh, like Susgrams or this, or someone will have them. And I was like, oh, great, thank you. There we go, done. It just saves you a lot of time, doesn't it, talking to other people. So yeah, if you... I've got a slide about it as well. And there's a handy QR code right here. But yeah, we've got loads of resources for trying to speak up for cycling in lots of different ways. Media, social media stuff, how to organise a bike bus. So yeah, if you kind of think, oh, I wonder if there's something more I can do with this, but I'm not sure how to do it, then have a look because there might be something useful on there.
But is that open resource or something where we can actually have this discussion? Because that's what I heard from you. There are always somewhere these open resources already, and you can read through it. But what I heard from you, and I think it's the same. That's really that I heard it. But we need somehow this exchange, not only on. This is now a good opportunity, but to really get these together and discuss it and evolve on these explanations. So like a collaboration platform, we have this with Bike Bus World, with Sense Bike Bus World already, but it didn't work that much that it got everyone on it, or especially with the German community. I thought it's not really pulling them in. So I think we do have some way of, when we talk about organizing and campaigning globally, I think we somehow need to get the team together to drive it. And
Yeah, it would be great, wouldn't it, to have a special online community just for bike bus people.
I think several groups already kind of started, and maybe we have to decide, but like we started like email group list that did never work, but there's a Slack group that samples and there's people, so maybe we can decide. Yeah. And for these days, I think there's like 3 panels in Arts 27 that you can put post-its.
And it seems like you're in all of these groups, so that's the person to talk to if you want to be in them. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for all being extremely enthusiastic and having loads of really interesting conversations and participating so much. And yeah, we'll hopefully talk to some of you later on and tomorrow. Have a brilliant rest of your time. Oh, do you want me to try and find your video, Mireia?